It's 8:08. Time now to introduce my guest for today's show. His name is Michel Weatherall. He's an author, poet, publisher, printer, and my favorite, an imagination weaver. He is a native of Ottawa, and he lives with his wife and 2 children right here. Good morning, Michel.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. How about you?
I'm good. You got a sneak peek at kind of an hour of abstract radio.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Was it fun?
It was fun. Yeah.
You've gotten a few interviews the last little while.
Yep.
Carol Ann Mean, I think, was the latest.
Yep.
She's a CKCU alumni.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, she was on my show not too long ago. It's fun having her here. I didn't do a whole lot of prep because you, as a guest, you're a little out of my comfort zone. I usually have musicians or I stay away from authors and poets. A, because I don't read books, and B, I'm not into poetry. So by the end of today's show, maybe I'll have a better appreciation for both those things, especially when I read Imagination Weaver.
Yeah.
I went to your website. There's a lot of stuff there, so I didn't know where to start, so I figured I'll just start at the beginning. Born and raised in Ottawa?
Yep.
Does one have to be kind of formally or classically trained on how to write a book?
You know what? I don't think so. I did a book signing early in the year at Chapters in South Keys, and one guy came up and we were chit-chatting for a while, and then one of the things he had asked me was, point blank, what degrees do you have? And I didn't answer the question. I kind of danced around it, but it raised an interesting point, is that I don't really believe to write. I mean, there are skill sets involved. There's editing, there's formatting, there's the artwork, the covers, but it's storytelling. It's basically taking your imagination and giving it life. And I think that's an innate ability people have. I think everybody has that inside of it. I think that's part of the human condition, is to get those stories out. But
it's hard to write.
It can be hard to write, but you know, I think a lot of times what holds people back is fear. I know with myself, as example, if you ever think, I want to do this, but I'll do it when I'm ready. I'm not ready yet. You'll never be ready.
Yeah.
And I there's times, so many times when I'm doing, and I have to say with book signings and for events, the people you meet and the conversations you get in are incredible. They're fantastic. But I always have this fear in the back of my mind where people will they'll realize I don't know what I'm doing. They'll realize that there's a curtain they can pull back and see a male man working the controls behind it. And that's something that I think we all have. And it's just a matter of go for it. Just, if you have the idea, run.
But there's got to be, you got to have some sort of peer group. Like after you write it, you got to have a second pair of eyes look at it.
That's right. That's right. I mean, when the first book here, The Symbiote, this was written probably about over 20 years ago, and it sat in a desk drawer for the longest time.
Before it was written?
Before it was published.
Oh, okay.
And then I had it available online for a while. It was a small website. And then that was the end of it. And then my daughter had said to me, The Wisdom of Children, because I have a background in print, she says, this is what you do for a living. Why don't you just publish it yourself? And, you know, it's funny how you just don't make those connections. So I ended up deciding I would do that. And then when I went to actually pull the files out, they were all gone. I couldn't find them. They were on a missing computer. And I ended up getting go to the old website. And I had more or less just cut and paste, got everything that way. But it took all the codes with it. So the entire thing had codes intermittent throughout it.
Yeah,
I had to go
and edit it.
I had to go through and clean everything out. And half of the second one was the same problem because it was half written at that point too. And what I did was, once I got that going, at least, you start realizing. Well, what I did was I put a beta copy out, I'll call it that. And I only did about maybe 30, 35 copies. A small handful went to people that it was dedicated to. The other ones just went out to a couple of very small local stores. I want to see if there was interest. And that's what you're saying, getting that feedback and see if there is interest. And there was interest. And then that's when I started going past that. And clearly people liked it. Because you don't know when you go out. You're thinking, I can be the next Stephen King, or maybe I'm just a laughingstock. You don't know.
Right. And much like recording artists, there's not much need for a studio anymore because we can do it on computers.
That's right.
In the printing industry, we now have on-demand printing,
yes.
So you don't need a minimum run of 500, 1,000. You can do one.
Yep.
Vistaprint, not Vistaprint, but there's several, and every day there's more and more people that make books online.
Yeah.
And you know what? They're reasonably priced.
Yes.
For me, Blurb was one of the early people that would do photo books, and then you could put text and stuff. But this was an on-demand kind of book?
Yes.
Who did it for you?
There's a company in Montreal called Rapito Books.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And they're fantastic.
Yeah.
They're very, very, very good. I'm happy with them.
And this is the finished...
And this is the finished product. Yeah.
So, who needs the 1,000
Well, that's just
run?
it. Doing it traditionally, like, even if you self-publish, realistically, you don't think you could in yesteryear, because you'd be rolling 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 copies, storing them in your house probably, and hoping they sell. And that's a lot of money to put out in the beginning.
Right.
You can do 25s, 50s, whatever you want at this point.
Yeah. You spoke of digital copies online.
Yes.
Are you still doing that?
I do.
Do you put out the hard version before you put out the digital version? Do I have to buy the digital version to see it? Is there a preview? How do you make that?
You can preview this. What I always find, right, everything I put out, well, the poetry was only available in ebook for a while, and then now it's available in print. But everything I put out is in ebooks as well. It's on Amazon, it's on Kobo, it's on Barnes & Noble's, iBooks, Apple's iBooks, Smashwords, and Google Play.
Wow.
But what I find is there's this illusion that the ebook, I wrote a book, I'm going to put it out in ebook format, there's no overhead, it's free, which is all true. But what a lot of people miss is when you're on an electronic format, when you're on ebooks, you are literally one voice in a sea of probably billions screaming into the void. Good luck being noticed. It works best as an accessory, I find. I have a friend of mine that's a retired professor, at a university professor, and right now he goes around and gives lectures and things like that, and he has ebooks that accompany him. But if you're at the lecture, you're already interested. So there's that avenue. And I offer it, as some people do have a preference for ebooks. Most people I talk to prefer the hard copy. They want the feel, it's textile, they want the smell, they want the whole thing, that's all kit and caboodle. I know I'm like that. I have a small library. I have a small library in my house, and I always get a kick out of that. You can't make a library with ebooks.
No, I have a big library in my in fact, right now the library is out of commission. I'm renovating my living room, and all of my living room is in my library, so it's a big mess. But yeah, I'm a fan. I don't care how much, I like having the heart. Like I said, I don't read books. It's not entirely true. But I have to have a book with me. It doesn't require to be turned on. I don't have to download anything to see it. It's instantaneous.
Yeah.
And I don't have... Anyway, I assume that if you're a book lover, you still like the physical.
I think most people do.
And people, like you say, will use the digital copy as an accessory that they'll load on their iPad, that they'll take on a vacation.
That's right.
For just that vacation, because they don't want to carry 10 books.
Yeah, and there are applications. There's fantastic ones when traveling.
Do you make money from the digital sales?
My digital sale, I actually, just recently, about a couple days ago, I posted, I think it was about a 16-month window, and digital sales cover about little under 4% of all sales.
Wow!
So it's not
nothing to write home about.
No, it's nothing to write home about, but it's there.
Does it run out? Like if I load it onto, is it the Amazon Kobo device?
You're asking the wrong. Yeah, I should have an answer for you. Yeah, I don't read any books on ebooks.
But do you have friends that are reading them on
not big,
Kobos?
No. The occasional few, but for the most part.
The problem with the stuff that you bought through Amazon, there's either a time limit or you can't transfer your ebook to another platform if you choose to. So, but it's not important if it's only 4%.
That's right.
Why even?
I'm not going to knock myself out over it. No.
But you it's not just one or two books. I thought you were coming in here because we have a mutual friend, Happy Joy, who may or may not be listening now.
Hopefully she is.
Sometimes she listens and she may be laughing, but sometimes she has to turn me off, and she knows why, and I know why, but she'll be listening and she won't turn me off today. At least hope not. Happy Joy. Hope you're having a good day. But yeah, I thought there was only one book, and then I go to the website, and there's like a whole slew.
That's right.
So, and they're all fiction.
They're all fiction, yeah.
Okay.
Horror.
Horror.
Yeah.
And I was thinking the other day because people were talking about thought crime.
Okay.
It's come up in the news. There were some people arrested for thinking about committing.
That's scary in itself.
Uh-huh.
Talking about not learning lessons from history and literature.
And that's what I say. You know, the things that happen in life are kind of like science fiction movies. Like science fiction to me is the future predicted.
Yep.
Science fiction is 5 minutes away from reality. That's what I say. And so, you know, that's the first thing that came to my mind. It's like, oh, it's horror, which it may or may not involve death, which may or may not involve people. And then I'm thinking thought crimes. It's like you're a perfect candidate, you know, because you're evil and you may act out.
That's right.
So how do you respond to that?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. A great movie. It's hard to find now. Closet Land, it was called. And it's basically, could have been a play. It's all set in an interrogation room. And it's just, I think she's a school teacher or she had a children's book. And they picked her, you don't even know what country it's in. And they figure she has subliminal messages or something's going on in her children's book. And it's a horror in the truest sense of the word because there's no monster, there's no gore, there is one scene of violence, but overall, it's just a dialogue between the two of them. And it's this paranoia that, what are you teaching the children? What are you reaching out? And, you know, it's kind of funny in the sense of, I think in general with literature, it's a reflection of a culture. Like, I firmly believe you can tell truth through fiction because it's a reflection. Now, is it a thought crime? Absolutely not. But that's how we innovate. That's how we grow as a species, even.
Well, and Stephen King should be in jail.
Yeah, if that's the case.
If that's the case,
yeah.
You know, he should have been in jail a long, long time ago. So, where did your interest have you always been a writer? Were you keeping notebooks or logs when you were a teenager?
I kind of do. I kind of have. I get asked that question a lot. It's a hard one to answer because ultimately you start getting categories of, are you an author once you're published? Are you an author when you dream about it? At what point does that become a reality? I think one of the earliest memories I can think of is when I was in grade 6. We were given a project to write. I think it was a 2 or 3 page short story, and the whole class had to do that. And I came up with 6 pages because I couldn't cut it down more, and that wasn't enough. And I ended it on a cliffhanger saying "to be continued." And the teacher brought it in front of the class and read it and read the ending and said, I'm going to reassign a second one because he wanted to hear the rest of the story. And I wasn't very popular in that class afterwards. But you do get to this area where I think it's a different mindset. A lot of people ask, where do you get your ideas from? And I think once you got that initial germ of an idea, it takes on a life of its own. Like, I honestly think in anything creative, anything, music, writing, you only can take part credit for it because part of it starts issuing itself. You become more of the medium that it comes through than you are the creator of it.
You become biased almost.
You do, yeah.
Yeah. So the seeds of your ideas really come from reality, everyday things.
Often, yes.
They're not just picked out of an ethereal cloud.
No.
You know, they're
something gives it life.
Triggers, and it's like, oh, that can make a story, and I'll go down this road with that.
Yeah. Well, no, it's true, actually. This series itself is, in print edition, it's 3 books. In ebook editions, it's 5. Because the third book, Necropolis, in ebooks, it's 3, 4, and 5 all in one. So if you get the print edition, you get all 3 in one volume. But I'm working on a 4th one called The Refuge Chronicles. And it deals with the human debris, the fallout of the secondary characters throughout all these events. But it's funny because you talk about getting ideas from reality. One of the things I had come across for last Christmas, my wife got me an Irish Iran sweater, you know, the one with the different weaves in it. And they're great, they're fantastic. And I didn't know this, but the story behind it is every town originally had its own weave. And as you know, this took the romance out of it for me, but the mythology behind it is that when a sailor went missing, when their body washed up, they're usually difficult to identify. They would look for the weave of the sweater, trace the hometown, bring the body there, and that's how they would find where they belong to. And okay, it is what it is. But that gave me the idea for one of the stories in the Refuge Chronicles where it's just an older woman, a younger woman weaving together, and the whole short story is dialogue. That's all it is. And they're talking about, this one takes place in northern shores of Newfoundland. And it's the same idea. They're young. She's teaching a younger one about the different sweaters and the weaves of the towns, and she mentions 7 towns, and as they're listing them off, she only talks about 6th. And the younger one asks, well, which one's the 7th? Oh, we don't talk about that one. We don't. And she draws her out of it after a while. It was that eventually she says, well, the men that go missing never wash up. They never come back. And it's kind of left like that. And then the follow-up starts out where it's in the early morning. There's a pair of police officers at a beach, and sure enough, a body is washed ashore, and that's the sweater it's wearing. And, that's the kind of stuff that it's a great idea to get going, and it comes from a sweater. That's all it came from.
I guess fiction gives you more freedom to be totally creative.
Well, you're not bound.
The second part of that question is why fiction and why not nonfiction?
That's a tough question.
Because they're kind of related, I guess. I'm assuming you don't do nonfiction because fiction just has more creativity. You can go anywhere with it.
Yeah. I think I'm generalizing here big time, but I think with nonfiction, you are entering a realm of specific expertise. You're talking about something. It's real. It's you're reporting. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not so much. It can be storytelling, but it's not so much storytelling anymore.
Right. It's more kind of outlining the facts of a particular issue.
That's right.
So I say, if you're a writer, well, I guess is there a reason why you don't tackle nonfiction?
I do in some senses. I do some writing and blogging on theological issues. Was recently invited to...
Let's go there.
There's a hot one.
Oh, boy.
Recently invited to...
You're talking to a recovering Catholic here, so be careful. Or I better be careful what I say.
No, I like it in the sense of... it's so difficult to explain. You're dealing with perceptions, and you're not just dealing with your own. You're dealing with the world's perceptions. You're dealing with individual perceptions. And everybody brings something to the table. And what makes it so interesting when you're dealing with conversations theologically is many, many of the terms and words that we so regularly use are loaded. I walk into a conversation, I say the word God, and there's automatic baggage that comes with it. From me, from you, from a third party. Everybody brings that with the certain assumptions of what that means. And it's clean across the board. There's so many issues like that are in it. So you need to get into the realm of, or you need to be careful of, don't get trapped in nomenclature, get focus on what is the message trying to be sold as opposed to what words we're choosing to tell the message through. And I think that's where we get tied up a lot. That's where we get tripped up a lot.
Yeah. I don't know what to say to that. Let's go back to your books, though, because there's so many. You mentioned this was the first book, The Symbiote, and there's like 2 other parts to this?
Yes. The Symbiote, the first one, the main character is a master pianist, and he's kind of fed up and jaded with music today. He figures out there's got to be more. He tries the researching. I'm not going to give too much away. This all happens in the first chapter. And he hears about another very old piece of music and traces ancestors down to a woman in England. And when they get together to decipher it and play it, he discovers that it wasn't a piece of music that was lost from history. It was removed from history. And what it does, it ends up opening a portal outside of the universe and lets something out that shouldn't have been. The rest of the first book is the consequences of that. In that initial event, he loses his wife. Now, he's upset. He's convinced she's not dead. His whole motivation is trying to find her. He never gets to do that because of everything else that's going on with what's released. There's these organizations, these clandestine military and government organizations that are hinted at in this that are aware, but we don't really come across them at all. In the second book, The Hunt, Symbiosis, it follows his wife's story. And we do come face to face with these organizations. They are alive and well, and things start escalating and amping up. The RCMP gets involved, CISA is involved, the UN's involved. There's the Yamayuki destroyer gets pulled into the picture. I won't say too much beyond that. The third and final book, Necropolis, is large. It's set in ancient Egypt in a 1925 archaeological dig and today, and it jumps back and forth between those storylines until it comes to its big conclusion.
It has an end.
It has an end.
Because it seems from your twisted mind that you could keep that going forever, right?
You could.
Like if
you'll
you have
probably
it-
drive into the ground doing that.
Yeah,
but-
if your mind is that active and
Yeah.
you can kind of do these side stories or
That's right.
take a backdoor entrance to it, you can make subsets of sub-stories and go. You could actually technically keep that kind of concept forever. You could have unlimited volume number 20.
You could, yes, you could.
But in this case, you defined an end.
Yeah, well,
Do you regret that? Is what I'm getting at.
well, no.
Did
Yes
you
and
want
no.
it to continue, like
The
Symbiote Part
funny
4?
thing that I got about it was I knew I finished writing the second one the beginning of last year, and I knew that one of the characters has to die for the storyline to go forward. And when I came down to actually writing it and penning it all down, I got to the point where I almost was falling in love with the character, and I said, "No, I can't." And there's no way around it. It's just one of those tragic things. It's the way it has to go. And I did kind of cheat a little bit and find a way around it in the third book, but you can keep going indefinitely. And what I've done, like I said, I'm talking about writing a fourth one with the Refuge Chronicles. It's basically tying up all loose ends. There's a lot of secondary characters that are caught victims in what's going on.
Was that deliberate or
No.
accidental?
No, accidental.
The dead ends.
No, it wasn't. Well, some were, a handful were, but for the most part, they weren't.
Did your readers say, "Hey, what happened here"?
Well, I had one person with, right in the first book, there's a loose end that very few people pick up on, and they said, "Well, what happened to Henry?" Don't jump there yet.
Oh, okay.
But no, they're, for the most part, what I wanted to do with the Refuge Chronicles, or it's not out yet, is I want to break the traditional story writing style. I don't want it to be as linear as a lot of them are. I don't want it to be chapter 1, 2, 3, 4. My plan is right now I've mapped out about 20 short stories. Basically, they're going to be vignettes. They're all going to be standalone short stories, but they're all interconnected. But you're not going to have to read them from first, second, third. You can read them in almost any order you want.
They'll still connect.
And they'll still connect. It's not blatantly obvious how they connect. And that's what I want to kind of play with a little bit with that one. But that should tie up everything, hopefully.
Sounds neat. So how many books total? There's 3 or 4 of
There's
three of this.
there's 3 in print for the Symbiote series.
Right.
There's a short collection poetry called The Dark Corner of My Soul. And then
Sounds interesting.
the other ones that you might find in there, like Mother Machine and Coffee at Pacody's, are some of the shorts from the upcoming Refuge Chronicles.
A Mother Machine? What's that?
That's one of them in
Oh,
it.
okay.
That's the first one.
Okay, and Necropolis Book 3.
That's the ebook of Necropolis.
Okay. Yeah, there's just so... and Coffee. Coffee
at
at
Pacody's.
how do you say that?
But I'm assuming it's Pacody's.
Okay. Where is that
That was
place?
supposed to be Starbucks, and I'm not allowed to use it, so
No, of course not.
I went with Pacody's.
Okay. We're going to take a short break. I'm going to get through a few of our sponsors here. And when we get back, we'll talk more about poetry, too. I'm going to need you to convince me somehow to like poetry, because I just don't. And I don't know why. I'm not sure if it's just I had a bad experience when I was a child, or I was surrounded by hippies or something. I don't know, but we'll find out in the next half hour. It's currently 8:32. You're listening to the Hump Day version of Special Blend. I'm talking to Michel Weatherall. He has a website, a Broken Key Publishing. That's tough, eh?
Oh, it's a hard one.
Yeah. It's on my playlist at CKCU-FM.com. The whole link is there if you want to check out his books or more information. He is an author and a poet, and we're just going to take a short break here, and we'll be back in just a few moments. Do stick around. It's currently 8:32.
Follow us on Twitter at CKCU-FM for up-to-date information on programming, community events, and more.
Girls to the Front, showcasing artists from Ottawa and beyond each month. A warm space to hear emerging and established songwriters performing in the round. Girls to the Front runs on select Mondays at Irene's Pub, 885 Bank Street. It starts at 8 p.m., hosted by Julie Corrigan in partnership with CKCU and Red Leaf Music. When the girls take the stage, will you be in the audience? For the dates and more info, go to irenespub.ca. Monday, July 18th. It's Ali McCormick, Christine St. Pierre, and Julie Corrigan in the round. Girls to the Front, brought to you in part by CKCU.
You're listening to CKCU 93.1 FM in Ottawa.
8:33 here on the Hump Day version of Special Blend. I'm Tick, and joining me in the studio is Michel Weatherall, an author, and we're continuing the conversation. Let's talk about poetry just for... Is this a poetry book here?
That's it, yeah.
Is this it?
Yeah, it's
Is
not...
that even a book?
It's not very big.
No offense, but
No.
Is this 3 pages here? What is this? A dark corner of my soul. It sounds scary. It sounds scary right off the top, and because it's poetry, I would assume that it's reflective. The content would be reflective. There might be some scary stuff in there because if it's coming out of your head, a dark corner of your soul. What's the theme of this? Or is there a theme?
Well, I don't know if there is a theme or not.
It's poetry. How can there
poetry,
be a theme?
Yeah. It's one, actually, to be honest with you, I remember when the very first time I mentioned earlier when I had some, I'll call them beta copies of the Symbiote out, the first time I physically dropped them off at a bookstore and physically let go of them in my hand, you have that oh crap moment where you're kind of scared because now it's out there, it's real, people are going to be looking at it. But I mean, putting out fiction is one thing. People can think what they will, but it's just an idea. With that one, Dark Corner of My Soul, with the poetry, it's yourself at this point. You're revealing something of your own, and that's very, very scaring. I hummed and hawed for the longest time whether to put that out or not, simply because you almost feel naked in front of a world of strangers with it.
Well, with this one.
With this one, yes, with the poetry.
A dark corner of your soul.
That's right.
I'm assuming...
It's not... See, the thing I find interesting with that, and like you said before the break, convince you that to like poetry, this might be a way of doing it. A lot of people believe with art or with painting or with music or with poetry that it's not artistic unless it's beautiful. And there's truth with that. But the other side of it, too, is, and this is a great example of it, is this is dark poetry. It's not uplifting. It's not happy. It comes from a very, very dark time.
Perfect for me.
And that's why it's scary for me, because it's revealing areas that are very, very like it. That most of those poetry pieces came together around. It was a good long time. It was shortly. I went through a very dark period. It was shortly after my mother passed away. That wasn't the only. It was a perfect storm of events came together. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I did decide to put this together in print, I had to go through it, do the best I could to clean it up because I had issues with some of the formatting because it was from such a long time ago. But what surprised me was reading it now. Basically, you're a different person realizing, oh my God, I can't believe I came from such a dark place. And it's actually therapeutical to the point where you realize, yeah, I have come out from that area.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the title. It shouldn't be a surprise.
No.
If it's dark and personal, it's a dark corner of your soul. It's like, that tells me everything right now. It's like, I'm afraid. It's like, how bad was his childhood or whatever? I guess my problem with poetry, this right off just by looking at it, not even reading it, they're very short, which is good for me. Yeah. Short attention span theater here. But short is good and interesting is good, because poetry to me, it just seems so ethereal. It seems so flowery and there doesn't seem to be a point to poetry. Now, again, I could be wrong because I don't really follow it, but it's just a bunch of words strung together. And then when we get into structure of poetry, because I don't think this is following any particular structure.
Some do, but for the most part, no.
Because there's all these types, and I don't even want to get there because I think they're all silly. Like, name a few just so I can laugh at them.
Oh, geez.
What's
couplets?
There's
limericks.
There's somebody that does something. It's like three lines with 4 words in it each. That's a style too. Haikus.
That's it. Yeah,
the Friday haiku. No, Lynn Hanson. No, I'm not talking about you, Lynn. Lynn Hanson, a local musician, does her Friday haikus, which are interesting, but they just don't grab me. It's not. It's like you're saying the sky is blue. Like, it doesn't. There's nothing personal there. But this is like little teeny tiny stories.
Yeah.
About you.
Yeah.
Using powerful words, I guess.
I'd like to think so. Yeah.
Now, is this your only poetry?
That's the only one I have.
Is there
out,
more to come? Have you got a desk drawer full of?
I do have more. They're a bit more flowery, and not really my thing.
Do you do poetry readings?
No.
Because that's the other thing. It's like a bunch of people.
I know. I mean, this. When I first started,
it's a special club, right? You belong to the poetry club.
Yeah. No, that's the one thing I do. I do for the other books. I do book signings and that's fine. I get along with that. I've been invited a couple of times to do readings, and I'm not comfortable with that at all. No? I don't like reading out loud. And the funny thing is, I know it's not the same thing, but doing interviews like with Here Right Now or on the Caroline Meehan show when I was on Daytime Ottawa November on TV, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but for the most part is you're not functioning within a script. You're not stuck doing, you're just talking. Mm-hmm. When you're doing readings, you are in a system. It's the same thing. Years ago, a friend of mine asked me to do a reading from the Bible at his wedding, and it was the most nerve-wracking thing in the world because it's bad you're in front of the audience, but it's a scripted thing you're doing. You're not talking. You're not winging it. You're not shooting off the hip. There's expectations. I guess that's it. And I don't like that. I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because one of my apprehensions about authors, and this is just a really big generality, is that I don't usually have authors in here. They may be good writers, but they're horrible speakers sometimes. They answer with one-word answers.
Yeah, it makes it brutal.
No, we're on radio. You got to keep this going, Yeah. And so I kind of shy away from. It's like I said earlier, not part of my comfort zone.
It's funny when you say that because I've done several events, book signings at bookstores, a couple like the Authors Market on the Byward Market. And at the end of the day, I think that's how, as a local independent author, that's how you move stuff is it's you that are selling the books, not your books. Because at the end of the day, people usually buy for names. And let's face it, you're not a name. Nobody knows you. Oh, nobody knows me. Maybe that'll change in time.
Sure.
But what I've noticed a lot of time doing it is, it's like you said, the ability to talk, the ability to interact. I've seen people, and I wish people could see me with the camera.
You're doing fabulous, by the way. Just for you're the best author I've had on this show.
Doing a book signing where they sit there. They sit, don't stand, with their arms crossed, with a blank look in their face. And, you got to look at that when people are walking through. What message is that saying? It's not inviting. It's basically saying, don't talk to me.
Don't open this door.
Yeah, don't, and it's, when you're at a book signing, it's hard. You got a window of about a second, maybe a second and a half to catch their attention. Mm-hmm. And then
how you doing?
Yeah, that's right.
Did you like the book?
I've had so many times at chapters where people thought I worked there. Can you tell me where the bathroom is? I don't work here. No, I can't. But it's fantastic. But that's the thing that's great about it, too, because there's a reward you get back from that. Like I said, the people in Ottawa are great. The conversation you have are fantastic. And people open up about their dreams, their ambitions, and they're very upfront with that, and that's refreshing. Like it's incredible having these conversations. I come away from most book signings feeling uplifted because of it. It's really inspiring to see people share stuff like that.
Are you well known in the Ottawa area?
I don't know.
Well, because
you
mentioned the book signings. I thought you had to be like a superstar to be a book signer.
I don't think so.
No?
Well, let's go with that. I like that avenue better. You have to be a superstar.
When you say the chapters, like all across Canada, or just the one downtown?
Yeah, No, I've been right now. The books are in the chapters at the Canada in Centrium. Mm-hmm. I'm doing a book signing this Saturday there. I have been in Indigo in Barhaven. The South Keys, and then right now I'm focusing primarily on a lot of independent bookshops, Perfect Books, Black Squirrel Books and Cafe, Cobalt's Corner is a comic book store in Canada. They carry it. Comet Comics on Bank Street, Cole's Notes and Billings Bridge. I'm trying to get into Cole's Notes in the Bayshore probably in September, I'm thinking. Octopus Books, Singing Pebble Books, and Books on Beechwood. A lot of small, and these ones I find the sales this sounds terrible to say this. This sounds horrible to say this on live radio too, but I find the people that go into the smaller local bookshops are better read. They're more eclectic.
Oh, yeah.
They're more open to...
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Because a lot of times the bigger brand names, they're looking for a specific author, and they're not looking outside of that box very
Chapters
much.
Is for mainstream book readers,
right. Yeah.
People like me, and I don't even consider myself a mainstream book reader, but the only reason I go to Chapters is to buy a book for a friend or to buy a very specific book, usually a how-to book, because I deal with like reality more. But where are you going to be on Saturday? We can promo that.
This Saturday?
Yeah.
It's going to be at Chapters in Canada, in the Centrum Center.
In Canada. At what time?
11 till 3.
Oh, that's a long shift.
Yeah, it is.
You just sit there for 4 hours?
Yeah. Well, I don't. I stand there, I chit-chat.
Oh, yeah, but people, like, how many people would you encounter in a day like that?
At that
2 or 100?
It You know,
Or
the funny
between
thing
that.
about that is, and, you know, I say this more for other people out there, that other local authors or people thinking about doing this, is it's like carpet bombing. I've had some book signings where I've showed up and sold not a book. And I had gone to the same place at another date and showed up and sold everything I brought with me. It just depends on who walks in. You know, you're going to get crowds of people that are interested, some that don't want to give you the time of day. It's so hit and miss. And then the other thing, too, what I do is I usually have bookmarkers there. I have bookmarkers as well. But business cards, sometimes people will take a business card, they won't buy a book, but they want the ebooks. But you won't see that until a day, or 2 days, a week later on whatever account you're going through. So it's exposure more than it is anything else as well.
Yeah, you got to get out there.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, again, computers are fine and social media is fine, but at the end of the day, we got to touch, we got to see, we got to talk,
That's
we got
right.
to ask, and again, back to touch. It's about, you know, I saw this online, but I much prefer holding this thing in my hand, this thing called a book, which is like so shocking. It's got words on paper, and it's got a cover, and it's all very cool. So we can give one of these away for sure. I'm not sure how we'll do it, but we do have, this is your first book?
That's the first one, yes.
But you got to get the other 2, right, to finish it off?
That's right.
Does this end on a cliffhanger? Does it force them to go get number 2 and 3?
Kind of.
Okay. The Symbiote. I have a free copy right here in my hands. I guess I've got 1 copy. We'll go via email. How about that? tick@ckcufm.com. And I might give up my copy, too, after I read it. And I might actually go through the effort of reading it. The Symbiote by Michel Weatherall. If you're interested, there's 2 ways. You can email me, tick@ckcufm.com, TIC@ckcufm.com, or you can interact with me right now at ckcufm.com, and you can type in your comments and say, hey, I want that book. Email is best, and you'll probably have to come to CKCU to pick them up. So if you're interested, reach me before 9:30, and I'll just leave 1 copy here, and the second copy I'll bring back next week. Again, Michel Weatherall, free copy of the book, The Symbiote. You explain what that's about. Do people get killed in this thing?
Yes.
Is there blood and guts and swords and
no,
cutting
no
of
swords.
bodies?
There are.
As soon as you say horror, you know.
A lot of people ask that, and a lot of people are. Horror is a hit and miss. You like it or you don't. There's no middle ground. It's not. Yes, there's violence in it. Yes, people die. It's not a horror in the sense of a slasher or a gore. It's more of a cerebral horror.
Okay.
There is violence in it. The nature of it dictates that, but it's not gratuitous. That's not the point of the horror.
I like
it's what's happening.
Cerebral horror.
Well,
so
it is.
It's a sophisticated. It's
like,
more
well,
sophisticated.
One of my biggest.
It happens in your mind.
Well, that's right. That's where the biggest fear comes. One of the biggest things that I like or influence is H.P. Lovecraft. People know him or they don't. He's one of my bigger influences, and this whole series is set in a world more or less of his. H.P. Lovecraft had written an essay a long time ago called Supernatural Horror in Literature, and he defines what horror is and isn't. And I like this because he talks about instinctive fear and supernatural fear. And in instinctive fear, he gives an example of you're in the forest, it's nighttime, you're alone, and you're being chased by wolves. Are you frightened? Of course you're frightened, but you know what they are, you know what they're going to do to you, you know what the risks are. That's not horror, that's instinctive fear. Supernatural fear is where it's like I was saying, it's cerebral. It gets you beyond that point. And I think that's, I'm not so much sure in literature today, but I know in movies what's considered horror today isn't really horror. It's gore, it's shock, it's splatter. I don't consider that horror. That's something else.
Well, you bring up a good point. Does your theology thinking come into play when you're writing that kind of cerebral horror?
No.
No?
No.
You keep that completely out?
Yeah,
Is
I mean,
that
I'm sure
possible?
some of
You're-
it trickles
you're
through.
biased. Come
yeah,
on.
there's of course I'm biased. It's some of it will trickle through. There's a couple of points where I don't want to say too much. The character enters
Oh, you can.
a state.
You can say you can describe that whole book. People will either forget or maybe they'll go out and read number 2 and 3.
One of the characters enters a state of almost being a universal consciousness at one point.
Ooh.
And there are theological implications slipped in there, but they're not for the most part. No.
You pro God? Just curious.
That's a great question. It goes back to what I was saying. When we say God, we bring baggage to the table. I assume a certain amount of belief. You assume a certain amount of belief.
Yeah.
What you define God as being, what I define God as being, are very, very
Right.
can be different things.
But the message is, or that we should be paying attention to.
Yeah, I do believe
be good
there's
to people.
Yeah.
Would be a prime message.
Well, you know the fun
of God.
That's right.
That we should be paying attention to.
It's on my website. I was invited by Thomas Ord, and he had written a couple of theological books. He's a theologian, and the last one he wrote, The Uncontrolling Love of God, he had emailed me a manuscript before it was published to do a book review to release simultaneously, and that happened, and that was great and awesome. And about a month or two ago, he had sent me an email saying that he's starting up a website and he wants people to give essays, and he wants to start getting dialogue going with that. And that's what he wanted to approach. And I did that. And the point I wanted to hit with that was this definition of our understanding of God. We don't have to have the same... We don't need to get caught up in these words of it. I do believe there is a higher power. I do. Whether it would be your traditional Judeo-Christian concept of God, no. I find that one hard to take. I do believe there's a bigger force, and I almost lean in the direction. Again, I don't want to pigeonhole myself in any specific religion. I would aim more towards the Hindu concept of the Brahman or something all-encompassing.
Mm-hmm. No, but I like your answer. I think we're closer than apart on this particular issue. I think anyway. What else have you got coming up? Something you got part 4 in the works?
That's in the works. I have no idea when that's going to be ready though. I'm kind of there's 3 of them. 3 of the short stories are written. You can get 2 of them on ebook. I think if you go to, I should know this absolutely. If you go to Goodreads, I think you can download Mother Machine and Coffee Epicodes for free right now. They're short. They're about 8 to 10 pages long. There's another one called Feathers and Bones it's finished, but I haven't done anything with it yet. But they're all going to be part of that larger piece down the road. Mm-hmm. As far as events coming up, there's a book signing and chapters this weekend
in Canada,
and then in the Byward Market has a thing they do called the Authors Market, and it's helping promote local authors. It's a great idea.
It is. That's like better than a farmer's market.
It is, and there's a lot of traffic there. Yeah. And the next one, I was there on the 8th. On the 29th of July, I'm there again between 10 and 3. That's on a Friday. On the 26th of August, I'm there again between 10 and 3.
This is at the Byward Market?
The Byward Market,
Is there a specific place at the building inside?
No, it's like one of the vendors outside. It's a canopied area and little signs and everything. It's all official.
Oh, neat.
And on the 13th, Saturday the 13th of August at the Parkdale Market Book Fair.
Who organizes these things?
It's the city. City of Ottawa does those ones.
Do you need a manager? This is it. Do you must have a full-time day job or something else? Okay,
yeah.
You can't be making a living off this
No,
stuff.
No. It's more of a hobby, something I enjoy doing.
Right. More on the way, I guess. More books. Have you got a whole Again, do you keep that notepad? And it's after this one, it's like, I'm going to tackle this subject or this area?
I don't really have anything in the plans other than the Refuge Chronicles right now.
And surviving.
But you know what the funny thing about this is? I was surprised when I first launched into this books, writing and getting them out there. Right now I see it. I didn't see it before. There's 3 real aspects of it. There's the creative aspect, the writing of it, and that's always both fun and miserable because I'll wake up at 2 a.m. with an idea and I got to get up and I got to write it down. There's the technical aspect of it, the formatting, the editing. That can just be a nightmare, and that's all kind of boring work. And then there's the promoting it. And that is a huge amount of work. It's ridiculous amount of work that takes to get out there and constantly keep things updated on Facebook or Twitter and keep things relevant and setting up book signings, setting up locations to try to carry your books in, meeting the people. And
Do you have an editor?
I don't, no.
Don't you think you need one?
Probably,
I mean,
yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but I figured every writer needs an editor.
Yeah.
Probably
so.
You
but
do the primary edit because you might write 5,000 pages, and it's like I got to take that baby down, and so you go over it. But before you send this off for the 1 or 50 copy print, who's your second pair of eyes?
For the most part,
No
friends, people that have read it.
You spell check it, of course.
I spell check it. But I mean, the
software.
funny you say that out because that I was saying to you in the breaks with I had written it so long ago, it migrated through about 4 different word processors, and when I had lost the files and got them from a website with all the code and everything I had to edit out, with the beta copies that had gone out, I didn't realize this. It having migrated through about 4 different word processors, not all the spell checks take or remember. Or the first beta one that went out, I'm looking through it, it's like, I could have swore I corrected that. Yeah. And it was, I won't say littered with mistakes, but there was a lot of mistakes in it. There was typos. And
I'm sure all your readers pointed them out to you.
Oh, yeah. Some people take this glorious...
they get really bent out of shape, if you've got one spelling mistake. Well,
and it's worse than that, too, because spell check doesn't catch...
No?
One of the things, and I missed it as well, was, I forget which word was which, but it was change, and the word type was chance. A C instead of a G. Yeah. Spell check doesn't pick that up because that's a word.
That's a word. No, you gotta look at it too when as it's going through and it's highlighting. Yeah. You gotta see. You gotta think. You just can't say okay, go spell check and walk away.
No,
it's like,
no.
You gotta say yes or nor or add.
Well, one good method I use, and it's boring to do it, is when you're reading a book, trying to proofread it. Ultimately, you go from edit mode to reading mode. And usually you forget when that happened. You don't realize how much have I read that I'm just reading and not. Right. A good method is starting from the back and read backwards because you're not following the story anymore. But it's mind-numbingly boring to read that way because you're just basically page after page after page.
But because you're so familiar, that's why I'm saying the second pair of eyes, because no matter how much you spell check it and you've read it and you think you got it, you give it to somebody else and within 2 minutes they'll find a typo or a comma's missing or something. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, you're too familiar with it.
You're too familiar with it. Yeah. And sometimes I get to the point where now I'm just afraid of creating anything. It's like I give everything to everybody to look at it 2 or 3 times, and even then they make mistakes.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, you're going to find that in anything you do. But I mean, and this is part of, again, for local authors or people that might be thinking of doing it, is there are going to be people out there, no matter where you go or what you do, that are looking to knock you down. And that's just kit and caboodle with it. Those are the people you ignore and you move forward with it.
Mm-hmm. If I take my phone and scan this barcode, where am I going to go?
That will lead you to the website.
Okay, that'd be probably...
That's the easier way to do it.
Easier way of doing it. The website is Broken Key Publishing with no G .wix.com. Or just Google your name. Yeah,
a good way would be Google Michel Weatherall and the word Wix, W-I-X, and it'll bring you right to that site.
Right to there. Oh, that's good. Michel Weatherall. Weatherall, one word, author. And you're going to be at Chapters this coming Saturday from 11 to 3. Is that, we talked about it a bit, but is it boring or do you find that 4 hours goes by really quick?
It depends. It really depends on the traffic flow, who's there, who's you're talking to. I mean, I find the hardest part is usually where you're set up in that location is don't stand on the hardwood floor. Stand on the carpet because your feet are just aching at the end of it.
You stand for the whole day?
I do. Okay. They give you a chair, but again, I don't. You got to be out there. You got to be.
And what's your choice of signing device? Pen, pencil, or Sharpie? Sharpie.
Sharpie. All the way.
Fine point.
Yeah.
Thick
Sharpie
point.
Fine point.
Sharpie fine point. Black. And this is good quality paper, so it won't bleed or spread. This is not newsprint, if you know what I mean. You have. What's the G for?
That's Goodreads.
And Broken Keys Publishing? Is that you?
I'm self-published, but that's who I am.
That's the name. Okay. That's your publishing company.
That's yeah.
Kind of a
A little bit pretentious, but
that's fine. Did you play piano, or where'd you get the image? Where'd the name
piano?
come from?
The character in the book is a master pianist. That's where the image comes from. I liked it. Do I play piano? Yes. Could I play while reading? No. Can I read music? Yes.
Oh, that's good.
Can I read music on the fly? No.
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 But the book is available at Amazon. At Kobo, that's new to me too. Is Kobo an e-reader, or
Yes. Yeah.
That's an e-reading site, or
again,
an e-reader?
I think it's both.
It's both. Okay. Well, we just Google Michel Weatherall for all your book needs. Horror. It's not. I wouldn't say horror fantasy. I would horror science fiction. Horror.
The category it would properly be under is weird fiction.
Weird.
But it's such an obscure genre. Most people look at you like you have a second head.
Yeah.
It's not well known, and I know in some smaller groups they argue and bicker over whether you can be a new author in that genre, or is it exclusively Dunsany or Lovecraft, like it's done when Clark died. It's a debate I don't want to get into. Let's just go with fiction horror.
Is there an authors club that you can join, or an authors association?
There are in Ottawa.
Like
I'm not part of them.
There's the Writers Guild of Canada. Do you fit into that category?
I don't. I'm not members of any of them.
Can't afford that, or it's not your league or your style?
I like, and I don't mean to say they don't allow this, but I like kind of being rogue, kind of be able to do what you want, how you want, when you want. Cool. And the one bonus about being an independent is there's a lot of downsides, but you're not answering to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, it's probably the best way to go. Especially like we start all this off with on-demand printing. We don't need the 1,000 copies.
That's right.
Print 5 and see how they go.
Yeah.
We're running out of time. Isn't that amazing how fast an hour went?
It goes quick.
It goes very quick. We've been talking to Michel Weatherall. The best way to get to his website is to just Google that name, Michel Weatherall, with maybe a comma and Wix. You'll be broken to brokenkeypublishing.wix.com. And I've got a book here free to anyone that may email me at tickets@ckcufm.com. If you would like Michel's first book called The Symbiote. There's 2 other parts, but you'll probably have to go to Chapters or any other popular bookstore to get it. Michel, thank you very much for coming in this morning, and best of luck to you with the future sales.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure being here.
It is now 9 o'clock, time now for the BBC News. Stick around. I will be back after that.
You are listening